Self-knowledge
Mm.
is a peculiar knowledge in that it is not knowledge of an object. It is knowledge of myself, for which the means of knowledge is the last portion of the Veda, in the Upanishads, collectively called Vedanta. Any statement that reveals the truth of oneself, the nature of oneself, with all fallacies removed, is Vedanta, whether it is in Sanskrit, some tribal dialect, or any other language. Although the literal meaning of the word Vedanta is the end of the Veda, the word Veda itself means a body of knowledge. This body of knowledge is available for the humanity. All that one has to do is make use of it.
Okay.
Correct.
So, any questions so far? Okay, so all clear. Maybe we can. Okay, so we can move on to the next part if you'd like.
Revealed knowledge, Paurusheya Pramana. How has this knowledge come about? We can say that it has come about by revelation, but to do so requires a certain understanding of the word revelation. Anyone can say, I had a revelation yesterday. God always comes in dreams, it seems, and tells certain people all sorts of things. I can also say I had a dream in which God came, but in my dream, God said, I never come in dreams. The statement that the entire Veda and hence Vedanta is a revealed knowledge is not an immature statement as we will come to understand. The entire Veda is a body of knowledge that was not authored by any person. It was revealed to the rishis directly. That is why the rishis are not the authors of the Veda. They are the seers of the mantras. Man- mantra drishtaha and
Bantadrishtaraha.
mantra drishtara and not mantra kartara. Therefore, the Vedas are considered to be a Paurushaya, not born of human intellect. They are considered to be a Pramana because they reveal something that is not available to us through perception or inference, be it the knowledge of various ends and means in the Karma Kanda or the knowledge of the self in the end portion of the Vedas. Thus, my definition of Vedanta is that it is a means of knowledge, a pramana in the form of words. The sphere of this means of knowledge is you. It talks about you.
Okay, so just to touch on this point, again, Pujya Samji is clarifying that these shastras that we study, the Vedas, are not authored, but they are revealed in some sense. And that also is an explanation that will be given later on, like what does this revelation mean? Because this is not to be equated in the Abrahamic sense. The Abrahamic sense, there is a chosen one, right? It's you know again, if you touch upon Western mythologies, and I when I refer to Western mythologies, I'm referring to stuff in the last 100 years as well. Whether you talk about Star Wars, you talk about Avengers, whatever it may be, there's this very Abrahamic concept there also, right? Like Luke Skywalker being the chosen one. That's very much like you would deal with a prophet in these prophetic or Abrahamic religions, where somehow God has, well, God from their standpoint, but what we're referring to as Ishwar as obviously a more nuanced concept. But just for now, equating the same for this conversation, their notion of God is that okay, there is a preferential God sitting somewhere in some distant part of the universe. Let's call that place heaven, and that person has chosen a set of people to whom these teachings will be revealed. And then those amongst those set of people to whom this teaching is revealed, there is one person who receives that teaching as a prophet. And then that person is the one who's guided by the hand of God, who tells people like, okay, this is what you need to do, blah blah blah. Okay, so that is the Abrahamic theology in a nutshell. Whether you talk about Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, that's how it really functions. In Sanatana Dharma, it is not that Hindus are chosen people or the rishis are chosen that way. Right? It is through one's own tapobala that the rishis are, you know, again, like, last time we spoke about multiple theories, not theories, but multiple models, because, theory means that we are making stuff up, but multiple models to explain this. One is that the rishis could be Karaka Purushas, that as part of Srishti, they are in place along with Srishti. When the Srishti has manifest, so have the rishis, and so therefore the knowledge is a co-eval. Okay, so that is one way to look at it, where the rishis are seen as avatars. Another model that I don't think we discussed the last time or the time before that was the rishis are Mahapurushas who, in a previous kalpa, which is in a previous time cycle of a previous universe, before this universe was manifest, they were Uttam Adhikaris, they had gained all of this jnana. The jnana nishtha had already taken place, and therefore, when they are reborn, it is out of choice. And that is, again, this is Puja Samji actually doesn't get into it, so maybe I'm introducing more confusion than there is necessary. But you know, there's this concept that some people speak of, which is called Vishesha Jivan Muktas, where if you have a tivra ichha to do lokahitam, something very um, helpful to humanity and such, then a person is born as even though they have attained jnanam, that there's a certain pocket of prarabdha that is stored for them to manifest again. So anyway, there are multiple approaches to this to understand this topic. But when we talk about the Vedas and the Vedas being aparushya, what is important to understand is that the rishis are not a chosen people, but because of their own tapobala, because of their own sukshmata, they're able to tap in to the blueprint of reality, and they're able to see reality for what it is. It is not something that is revealed in the Abrahamic sense, but it is seen by them, and therefore, because the knowledge is sourced, ultimately everything that we learn, it comes from a certain source, and that source goes back to Ishvara. That source is Ishvara, because not only is Ishvara the giver of knowledge, but Ishvara is the very object of the knowledge also, and Ishvara is the very content of the knowledge as well. See, this is very beautiful. Ishvara presents the knowledge. Ishvara is what the knowledge is also about, because through that knowledge one gains the knowledge of Ishvara. Ishvara is also the one who is gaining the knowledge, because Ishvara is also present as the subject, as oneself. And so Ishvara is both the object of knowledge, Ishvara is also the subject of knowledge, Ishvara is also beyond both subject and object of knowledge by being the content of knowledge. And Ishvara is also the means of knowledge. So this is very beautiful, and in some sense it is there's no exclusivity over here. And so what that implies is that essentially, if you are born in some other land, but you may have a different lineage, you may not be born in a Sanatana family, or you may not be born in Bharat also for that matter. But if one has that tapobala, if one has that alertness and that subtlety of the mind, then one is eligible to receive this knowledge, and there's no exclusivity over here. So many times people are like, oh, there is this notion of revealed truth in the Abrahamic religion also. So then that's the same thing as the Vedas, but it's not the same thing. It's certainly different. Any questions there before we proceed? And I request everyone on the call, like, please keep your cameras turned on, as a very solid requirement to be part of Satsanga. Um, so okay, let's look at the next section. This part. And maybe if Shrikant, if you'd like to take a shot at leading.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You now have a means of knowledge which you did not have before. Originally, you had only inference and perception, which you cannot press into service to know yourself. Naturally, then, you look for an appropriate means of knowledge and find that there is none available to you other than the one that is outside of you. An appropriate means of knowledge must tell you something valid about yourself. In other words, it cannot be fallacious. When something is said about you, it can either be true or untrue, something that is subject to personal validation. The word revelation here is to be understood in terms of an appropriate means of knowledge. The first step towards self knowledge, then, is accepting Vedanta as a revealed means of knowledge. How do we know that Vedanta is a means of knowledge? What is the proof? Is there a proof for a means of knowledge? If Vedanta is a means of knowledge for the self, it requires neither inferential nor perceptual proof. All that is required is that it should not contradict what you know inferentially or perceptually.
Okay. Any questions there? So, as with the pramana, the proof is in the pudding. One has to operate the pramana to be able to see that it is, evident. But if one, and Pujya Samji actually talks about it in the next section. So, if you'd like to continue reading, there's a very beautiful section here.
Okay. How do you prove that Vedanta is a pramana? Vedanta cannot be disproved as a means of knowledge, and it requires no proof other than self validation. Let us suppose that a man who was born blind undergoes a new surgical procedure at the age of 35 that will enable him to see. The surgery is considered to be a success. There are no complications, and the doctors are convinced that the man will see. After removing the bandages, the doctor says, "Please open your eyes." But keeping his eyes closed tightly, the man says, "Doctor, I'll only open my eyes when you prove that I can see." What can the doctor do now? He is being asked to prove that the man's eyes are a means of knowledge, that they are capable of sight. But how can he do that? He can only say, "I think you'll be able to see. The surgery went very well, and there is no reason why your eyes should not see." Even if the doctor forces the man's eyes open, the only proof that he will be able to see is the sight registered by the eyes themselves. Vedanta says that you are the solution to your problem and that there is no other solution. You have already tried to resolve the problem in a number of different ways. Vedanta does not promise anything. It does not say you will become the solution, it says you are the solution. To become the solution implies a certain commitment and investment, meaning that you may find it or you may not, since every becoming is fraught with uncertainty. In the Vedic vision of reality, everything that is known and unknown is Brahman, and that Brahman you are. Tat Tvamasi. Gaining this vision, one finds oneself free from all the limitations imposed upon oneself due to ignorance and error.
See, this is a very bold claim that the result of Vedanta is here and now. It is not delayed to the hereafter. There's no belief system over here that, oh, if you believe this, if you worship this deity, if you accept this prophet, then and then alone will you have entry to the gates of heaven, or some rubbish like that. Right? Vedanta says that try it out, see it for yourself that this works. And there's no other way. If somebody says, hey, you've been studying this Vedanta for so long, tell me, show me proof that it actually works. What can you tell that person? Try it out. If you try it out, then you won't have a question left, because clearly, given enough time, given commitment, it works. It's like just taking any subject for that matter. Once you because Vedanta is actually a cognitive pursuit. It is not something that one has to do. It is a recognition. Pujya Samaji says that Vedanta is cognitive all the way. Again, this going back to this thing that, oh, you can pick and choose your path in Vedanta. You can pick and choose karma yoga if you're active. You can do bhakti if you're emotional. You can do dhyana if you are in a meditative sort of frame of mind, and you can do this jnana yoga if you are cognitive or an intellectual. All rubbish claims made in the last 150 years, and completely contradicting the teachings of the Upanishads, contradicting the teachings and the commentaries of Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya ji, contradicting the very rishis. What we are studying here is the saral, simple, straight, clear teaching prescribed by the acharyas, prescribed by our, the great Mahatmas who have given us the Vedas. And that teaching is that the whole Tatparyam of the Vedas is Vedanta. Vedanta is the Nishchaya. It is the Nishtha that the whole Veda is upholding. The Vedas are upholding Vedanta like this. And that part that you finally come to, the Upanishads, those those teachings, the Mahavakyas, are capable of mukti. And how are they capable of mukti? By doing something that the Mahavakyas say no. The Mahavakyas are an equation. It's an equation between Jivatma and Paramatma. And an equation always implies Aikyam. And what is Aikyam? That the self that one is not different from the self that Ishvara is. And that recognition is a cognitive change that takes place in one's view and perception of oneself, of the world, of Ishvara. And that is a transformative teaching. A teaching is only truthful to the point where it can transform. If it cannot transform, then what's the point? So this is the fruit of Vedanta. If you can continue with the next section as well, or any questions here before we proceed?
Prashantji, I have a
Sure.
question. So, we just read that the Vedas are revealed knowledge, right? And also, we just discussed that the rishis, this was revealed to the rishis, and the rishis, unlike the prophets, are not chosen ones. So, rishis could have been any person, right? Like, you can have multiple rishis, multiple, like, it could just be common people to whom this knowledge was revealed to. So, my question is that if that is the case, is it possible for a common person to achieve this knowledge without uh, uh, using the Vedas at all?
That is,
And if
go ahead.
so, if yes, then don't we run into some kind of a danger of people claiming something that is not a part of it?
It's a huge problem. It's a huge danger, and luckily, the answer to this it's complex. It's a thing that one has to really understand well. So let's discuss this in some detail. See, like the question really goes back to who are the rishis and how are they different from us, right? Because if on the one hand we say that the teaching can only be gained through Shravanam, which we take as an axiom, it's an axiomatic principle that Shravanam alone is what frees. But now let's understand something very beautiful. Again, I'll always find some object, pramana, prameya, this whole example. I'll always find something. In order to know this thing, I need my eyes. I need eyes which are not only eyes, but they're operational eyes. They're not, having some defect where I can't see what's in front of me. Now, only when there is a subject-object dichotomy, I require to see that this is a dibba. Okay, that subject-object dichotomy is there. Therefore, there's a means of knowledge which is the connecting bridge between the two. Pramana is the connecting bridge between Prameya and Pramata. Now, suppose, just for the sake of it, suppose there is a pain in my elbow. What means of knowledge do I need to operate to know that my elbow is hurting? I mean, technically, one can say that it is a sense of touch. Technically, one can say that. I'm not denying that. But I'm saying, just for the sake of this example, I don't need any other tool except for the fact that because the pain is evident to me, because it's part and parcel of my own body per se, therefore I don't require an external means of knowledge for it. Just as one example, but I need to know if suppose Ambika, she has a stomach ache. I can't see that. She has to communicate that to me that daddy, my stomach is hurting. Help me out. And so then I have to look into it. But I don't need somebody else to tell me that I have a stomach ache. It's evident to me. And so you only need a means of knowledge to the extent that something is separated from you, it's other than you. Now, when it comes to the Mahatmas, the rishis, they in some sense are avatars. They are karaka purushas because just as today we talk about Shrishti and how Shrishti is but a manifestation of knowledge. The whole Jagat is a manifestation of knowledge, and part of that manifested blueprint are also the rishis. For example, part of the manifestation of the Sukshma Prapancha, or even prior to the Sukshma, but the Karana, the Samashti Karana, which is Ishvara, there was something already present in the blueprint of that, pre-cosmic, state, if for lack of a better expression, that manifests Brahmaji. Because if you look at the Puranic imagery, you have Vishnu Bhagwan lying on Sheshanag, and you know this this Brahmaji is coming out of his navel. Navel, there's a rose that's blooming, or a flower, or lotus. I'm sorry, and out of that lotus comes out Brahmaji, and then he's trying to find out what his purpose is, what his cause is, and then Brahmaji is the one who spawns the entire Jagat, right? The Sukshma, Tanmatras that we talk about, Akash and all of these Tanmatras. Brahmaji is manifesting them and is also responsible for giving rise to the Sthula Prapancha through a process that we talk about called Panchikaranam. Panchikaranam is, how atoms combine to give molecules, but the molecules don't have the same properties as the atoms. Like, for example, you have, I love this example. You have a water molecule. It's comprised of oxygen and hydrogen. Hydrogen is combustible, and oxygen is a flammable gas, right? It is a fuel. It is a fuel, sort of. In the presence of oxygen, fire will burn. It will consume the oxygen, and hydrogen will explode. But when you combine oxygen and hydrogen together, it becomes water to put out the fire. Right? So now you have a new set of properties that are emerging when you talk about molecules as compared to the atoms that they were comprised of. So similarly, now when you create that molecule, you're not depleting the atoms because atoms are still there, but now you also have a new structure called a molecule, which is beautiful, right? It's a structure on top of that existing structure. The existing structure doesn't go away, but it gives rise to a new set of properties. Excuse me. I probably have to resort to this thing. So, um, so when you have these new set of now when you talk about the Sukshma Prapancha, you have the Sthula Prapancha that is as though layered on top of it, but there's no on top of it because there is a Sukshma Prapancha that's still present, and then the Sthula Prapancha is a manifest complex property that's on top of it, sort of. So now this, when we talk about Brahmaji, the question is that, okay, if Brahmaji, where did Brahmaji come from? Brahmaji came from Ishvara's knowledge. Brahmaji is both the 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 how shall we say, the substance of Brahmaji, and the knowledge that Brahmaji had, which is not separate from the substance which is Brahmaji, is not different from Ishvara. And now this whole Jagat that we talk about, we say that the Jagat itself is a manifestation of Ishvara, because Ishvara is both the Upadana Karanam and the Nimitta Karanam. Ishvara is, what is the Nimitta Karanam? The Nimitta Karanam is the instrumental cause. You can say there's a teleology. Okay, this is what these scientists will not accept. You you go to the cosmologists or you go to any of these people, they say, "Arey, what are you talking?" But we accept that there is a teleological truth to the Jagat. And what does a teleology mean? It means that the Jagat has a certain purpose. The Jagat is not a state of random causations, but rather there is a very clear cause which sets everything else in motion. So the first thing that is set in motion, to simplify it, is Brahmaji. The next things that are set in motion are the Tanmatras, and then you have the Sukshma Prapancha, and then you have the Sthula Prapancha, and then you have all of these different astrophysical phenomena, and then finally you have planets and whatnot, and then you have living beings over here. So this is all being set in motion in a causal chain, and this causal chain goes back to Ishvara as the primeval cause. It all goes back to Ishvara. Now, as part of this causal chain, you have objects which appear independent, but at the deeper level, they're not independent. They're all actually as though the manifestation of the same entity, right? Even from the standpoint of the Sukshma Prapancha. So, therefore, what the long and short of it is that the rishis who were, these Karaka Purushas who manifested as part of the blueprint of the Jagat, that their very purpose was to be born in order for receiving. But again, it's part of that blueprint, it's part of the teleology. Therefore, they are special in that regard. And they are special in that regard because what they know of the Shastras is not known through a Pramana, because a Pramana requires something to be known as separate from them. Whereas they, by virtue of being able to tap into their very universal mind, which you can call Hiranyagarbha, They don't need to know something as a separate object, but it is as though known to them. I'll give a couple of other examples, and then I'll answer the question a bit more directly because it requires more context. In one of these beautiful sessions, when fortunately I suppose we didn't record it, I shared some stories of our Mahatmas that we are connected to, and how they seem to know things which are not evident to others. It is not that they are operating a pramana or a sixth sense, because if it were a sixth sense, it again implies a separation that is known through a sense that nobody else. But this sixth sense is actually the deeper connection to the reality which is underlying this one at the level of the Sukshma Prapancha. And therefore, they don't know things as distinct, but the knowledge simply takes place, just as the knowledge that I'm hurt over here takes place, because I'm not different from my elbow. So that is how the rishis would have this knowledge. But now then we say that okay, it is given by Ishvara. Why? Is it that Ishvara is planting little seeds in the minds of these rishis that okay, knowledge for you, Vedas, mantra. No, they just know it. But then we term Ishvara as a jnana data, as the giver of this knowledge, as the originator of the Vedic mantras, because ultimately that causal chain goes back to Ishvara. No matter how you cut it, it has to go back to Ishvara. Suppose one says that okay, you can trace your lineage. Who is your grandfather? Great grandfather. Maybe you can go back 10 generations. I don't know anybody who can, but maybe you can. But ultimately, you have to trace it back to the cause of the whole Jagat only. Na? You can't say that no. My lineage ends at the at apes who are the common ancestors of current chimpanzees and human beings. You can't stop there. You have to go further. Now these biologists will say "Hey, it's all bacteria, it's all proto-bacteria, it's all these life forms that evolved in the ocean." Arey, we are saying go back further. Cosmologists will say, yeah, this is all coming from the Big Bang. Arey, we say go back further, go back further. It's all Ishvara. The final lineage of everything ends in Ishvara. The lineage of knowledge ends in Ishvara. The lineage of hereditary ends in Ishvara. The lineage of everything in the Jagat ends in Ishvara. And so then it is such a natural thing to say that yes, this knowledge comes from Ishvara because it's acknowledging that this Jagat is not created by me. This Jagat is not formed by me. I have no say in its blueprint or its architecture. I have no idea how a single thing in the Jagat works. Who am I to presume that this knowledge is mine? And so the rishis attribute it all to Ishvara. And this is what is meant by revealed. It is revealed, you see, because that what else can you say? You have to say, Adideva, the one from whom everything else comes, the light behind all lights, the truth behind all truths, the object behind all objects, the subject behind all subjects, the one that is neither an object nor a subject. So that is the revelation, but it requires so much context to explain that it's just a simple way to put it. Whereas in the Western Abrahamic religions, they actually strictly believe it to be a revelation. That is where the preferential treatment comes in, which we luckily are not plagued by. Does that help answer the question, sort of?
Yeah, it does. Can you also touch upon what happens when somebody claims something that, as a revelation, they claim something that's outside the Vedas?
Dismiss the person. Do namaskaram because he might be a siddha, but dismiss him because he's out of line. He's out of order. He's overstepping his boundaries. He's overstepping his boundaries because he's going against what the Mundaka Upanishad teaches. He's going against what Jagadguru Shankaracharya comments on. Maybe what is that thing? Asampradaya with murkhavat upekshaniya. If you don't belong to a sampradaya, no matter how smart you are, even if your IQ is 200 points, you could come up with a reconciliation of relativity and quantum mechanics also for all I care. But when it comes to Shastra, you're still a murkha. You're a murkha because you don't belong to a lineage. And without that, there is absolutely no guarantee of what you are saying is legitimate. Because today, like you're doing your PhD, you know that you have a peer review system. Suppose I come up with a paper. Okay, just suppose I say that, hey, Anand bhai, guess what? I have solved the conundrum of the grand unified theory. I figured it out. I figured out how to quantize gravity as well. It's like, I know this stuff. What are you going to say? I'm like, oh, fantastic. That's so good. I'm so proud of you. What are you going to say? Where's the research? Submit it for peer review. Submit it for peer review so that we can make sure that what you have is legit. It's not, fanciful. And what happens to most new breakthroughs? What happens to them? They're thrown away, right? Have you not encountered every 2 years somebody will come up with some news article saying, oh, the theory of relativity has finally been disproven, right? You'll come across some random stuff like this. The speed of light has been broken. I saw this news like at least 3 times in my life, and I'm not that old. The speed of light has been broken. How many times have you seen that news? Many times. And then what happens after a few months of peer review and experiments? Out. And then what happens to that person who published that paper? He's dismissed as murkha, scientifically speaking. Okay, sorry, you can't cut it. You can't cut it this way. No credentials for you. So same way, if some person comes calling themselves a Sadhguru or this guru, that whatever, and then they say that I independently discover these things. Thank you. Keep it to yourself. We don't want it. We already have a parampara. But if you are happy, good for you, right? So that's what we have to do. Our attitude should be thank you, but keep it for yourself. Because first of all, you can't be sure that it's right. Secondly, by the off chance, the small little chance, they just happen to be right, either by coincidence or because maybe they are a contemporary rishi. I'm not saying there aren't contemporary rishis. I can state there are a few acharyas that I believe are certainly, as per my understanding, contemporary rishis of sorts. But they don't make these claims. These acharyas that I speak of do not make these claims because they know it goes against the grain of the teaching. Instead, they stay focused on Shravanam because Shravanam is the only way through which Jnana Nishtha can happen. There's no other way. And that is why, I say it, which it may be very offensive to folks listening to it on YouTube who are not part of this. Last week, for some reason, this video, I'm going to share something very funny, right? So I learned for a good reason, for a good cause, I learned how to be clickbaity. So these previous videos of mine on YouTube, they used to have somewhere between 150 to 200 views on average, something like that. The last week a video I said, "Chal, we were talking about like some science and about this and that and all." So I know this whole science and Vedas like, is a big thing, but what I presented was actually anticlimactic. It was anticlimactic because the whole conclusion was that no, Vedas, you can't call them scientific. It's foolish to call the Vedas scientific because then Vedas are redundant. But I gave a title like that, the unprovability of the Vedas and science and like that. And then suddenly after the title change or whatever, there was a big, huge tick up and then it got like 800 views or something. I don't know. But anyway, I'll see if I can make this one also clickbaity for a good cause. But anyway, coming back to this, the rishis were not there at one point in time because see, Ishvara, when we say Ishvara reveals, it is part of the order. The order is Ishvara. Ishvara is present here as the very substrate of reality itself. Every law that is in motion, every law that holds the world together is also Ishvara. And so therefore, even the Antakarana that one has is also Ishvara. And in certain cases, when one has, deepened one's nishtha, when one sees oneself as the whole, when that pressure from the mind that I am a limited jiva, I am a useless jiva, life kicks me around like a football. I get kicked around by my family, I get kicked around by my work, I get kicked around by my friends. I just keep getting kicked around. As long as one has that understanding, it means that the knowledge hasn't taken place. But when the knowledge takes place, all of this goes away. And when all of this goes away, automatically, as a byproduct, I'm not saying as a goal, but as a byproduct, certain siddhis will start manifesting in the mind because I, whoever will sink deeper into the very truth. Even at a mithya vyavaharik level, I'm still not talking about Atmanishta also. I'm just saying that as Atmanishta grows, one will incline deeper towards a more holistic view of the Jagat. And the minds will become more and more sukshma. And the more sukshma they become, the closer they are connected to the sukshma prapancha, which is Hiranyagarbha. And then it's almost as if new things start getting revealed very spontaneously, new insights start pouring in. And sometimes you just know things without knowing things. I have 100% seen this in some of my teachers. 100%. Impossible. Like, and I don't sound like a fanciful person myself. Like, I'll think things through. There's no way I can make this up. Like, they can, they have an uncanny ability to see what's on your mind and answer a question before you even ask one, or give you a phone call when you're thinking of them. Like, these things happen, and they happen because of that deeper immersion in the truth. So it's a byproduct. Now, there's another set of people who pursue what we call byproducts. They are trying to pursue siddhis. They're trying to attain. Um, they're trying to attain, what shall you say, these shaktis, and they are doing a decent job of getting there, but they are denied self-knowledge. They denied self-knowledge because Swamini Swatmavidana ji says something very beautifully. She says you can choose to seek infinitely, or you can be a seeker of the infinite. The latter is an infinite pursuit, the former is a finite pursuit. To seek the infinite requires a finite pursuit, but to be an infinite seeker is an infinite pursuit. And no matter how many siddhis I gain, Mahima, Garima, this, that, lot of things one can do. I can gain fame, and I can gain name, and I can gain wealth, and I can gain a capacity to influence people. They say this, that if there are certain upasanas you do, you will have this I forget what, but you'll have the ability to influence other people. There are certain rituals also given in certain Shakta texts and others, where you can actually make someone fall in love with you, things like that. Okay, I actually have a friend who was trying this out because he liked some girl. He was literally trying this out, like, okay, good luck, have fun. It didn't work out for him. Anyway, um, because temporarily somebody may like you, and then after you stop doing, the spell will be broken, sort of, and then they'll be like, oh, you're an idiot. Why did I ever end up with you in the first place, right? So anyway, I'm saying the Shastra is a supermarket. It will give you everything you want. If you want wealth, there are karmas you can do to pursue wealth. You want children? Yes, there are karmas for that. We've talked about that already. You want rain? There's mantras for that. You want knowledge? There's mantras for that also. You want particularly self-knowledge? There's mantras for that also. That is the beauty of Shastra. It's a supermarket, but you have to know which aisle to go down. And luckily, all of us, thankfully, with Ishvara Krupa only, no other Krupa, Ishvara Krupa, Guru Krupa, we have chosen self-knowledge. So siddhis may come, siddhis may go, we don't care. We don't think about it, because we know that if we hold on to the siddhis will hold on to us. And the longer you hold on to them, the slower will be one's movement towards knowledge. Because the desire for a siddhi also comes from a sense of limitation. Na? That I feel limited. And therefore, I think that the siddhi is going to make me a little bigger. But what Pujya Swamiji says is so critical. He says, limited plus limited equals limited. Say 0 plus 0 equals 0. Limited plus limited is always limited only. It will never be limitless. The recognition here is that I am the limitless self. Over there is no limitation. Any other questions? Okay. You can look at this part. Just one thing I want to ask: do these expanded explanations help, or do they, or would you prefer that we, I guess, have a greater ratio of reading versus explanation? I'm just checking for a preference. It does? Okay, good.
Yeah, I find the explanation helpful.
It does? Okay. Just wanted to make sure, because different people may already have some background of this, so I don't want to be redundant there. Okay, if like to read this.
Two committed lifestyles. To gain this vision, the Veda prescribes two committed lifestyles. One is a life of activity, pravritti marga, and the other a life of renunciation of activity, nivritti marga. Shankara introduces his bhashya to the Bhagavad Gita with the exposition of this twofold dharma as it is revealed by the Veda. Here, Dharma can be understood as a religious or as a spiritual pursuit. The Veda talks about action or activity. Karma, meaning not only religious activities but also those that we consider as secular. All activities, whether religious or secular, are considered to be dharma and thereby become duties. This is what is meant by the lifestyle of pravritti, whereas the lifestyle of nivritti is called renunciation, sannyasa. The lifestyle of pravritti is twofold: a pravritti for achieving security and pleasures here and in the hereafter, and a pravritti for the purpose of one's own maturity, for the purification of oneself, antahkarana shuddhi, as we shall see later. The same acts of prayers and other religious activities are done for both purposes. There are, therefore, two types of people who follow the pravritti marga. Both the types follow the Veda, but one group does so for the purpose of gaining immediate pleasures and securities. This group also follows the Veda for the unseen results of good deeds to be converted into better forms of security or pleasure later, either here or in the hereafter. The second group of people follow the Veda and engage in various actions for the sake of antahkarana shuddhi with moksha as their end in view. People belonging to both these groups accept the Veda as a means of knowledge, pramana, and are called Vaidikas. And because they are Vaidikas, they are referred to as believers, Astikas.
Okay. This part is very important. So many confusions are taken care of just in this section. Questions here? I can touch upon it a little bit, but okay. So one again very evident thing, right? That everybody is a Vaidika to the extent that one takes to the Vedas to achieve a given end. Could be pleasures, it could be security, multiple things. That's one group. Second group, self-knowledge. Now, there is also a misconception that those who seek self-knowledge should not bother with the Veda Purva or the Karma Kanda. It's a misconception. To the extent that, I mean, if one is at the level where it doesn't matter so much, sure, take sannyas. We should be comfortable taking to sannyasa if one believes that they are not to be troubled by the duties that are prescribed in Shastra and also some of the secular duties that we have towards family, career, whatnot. So, the Shastras bless a person with this attitude of Nivritti Marga to take to sannyasa, and this person is exempt from all Laukika duties. They don't have to worry about paying taxes to the government. They don't have to worry about earning income for their family. They don't have to worry about sending their kids to school. They don't have to worry about being a good husband who watches the same television show that the wife wants at night before sleeping on Netflix or somewhere else. They don't have to worry about these things because it is presumed that in earlier in this life or in a Purva Janma, they have taken care of their karma kanda based obligations and obligations towards karma in general. Pitru karma and Shad karma and this karma and that karma. They don't have to worry about any of that. Their exclusive focus is self knowledge. These people are what we call our sannyasis. Nivritti marga means sannyasa only. Now one can't say I'm a Nivritti margi and I'm also you can't. I can't be a Nivritti margi even if I want to. I can't. But because the misconception people have is that somehow one is opposed to the other. One can uh, aspire to mukti, to moksha, even through pravritti marga, if the intention, if the attitude is that I wish to gain antakarana shuddhi through karma, so that I may be prepared for jnana. So now these Nivruti Margas and Pravritti Margas are not two separate paths, but they are rather two different committed lifestyles that are both for mukti, except that in the case of Pravritti Margas, there will be more Antakaruna Shuddhi based activities and some Shravanam. And in the case of these Nivritti Margi sannyasis, there will be some karmas, but mostly Shravanam for Jnana Nishtha. Now, that Jnana alone is mukti has absolutely no doubt. It is elaborated, it is spoken about in our Shastras, all the way from Bhagavad Gita to the Upanishads to the commentaries of Adi Shankaracharya. It is very clear that, that it is unambiguously clear that the only way to mukti is jnana, because jnana alone is mukti. Jnana is not a path to mukti. Just as there is a certain express highway that goes from Mumbai to Delhi, there might be a second one that goes an old road or a new road. No, jnana alone is moksha. It is not the path to moksha. Jnana is moksha. Self knowledge is moksha. Atma jnanam is moksha. It's worth highlighting. Therefore, there is no compromise or negotiation over here that, can I just attain moksha if I have Antakarana Shuddhi? No, it can't happen. Antakarana Shuddhi is there, then the mind will automatically be inclined towards jnana. The mind will again, because of the excuse me, because of the sukshmata of the Antakarana, the mind will already be a very, there will be a slight uneasiness, a helpful, good, gentle uneasiness in the mind that is too distant from knowledge. It will start to wonder that what am I doing with life? Why am I wasting my time here? Why don't I just study Vedanta? Why don't I listen to my guru? Why don't I go visit my guru? Why don't I do Shravanam because it is so wonderful? This mind will have a little bit of slight chanchalta, which is a very good one by the way. Because you would rather have chanchalta for studying Vedanta than you would for many other worldly objects. And slowly, as that desire is fulfilled through Shravanam, even the desire for Shravanam drops away because one begins to see that the fruit of Shravanam is myself alone. Because you can only desire something other than you. You cannot desire yourself. You are yourself. You are who you are. So that is very beautiful. That in Vedanta, it is not that you are going and getting another object. That, oh, I have to make a lot of money so that I can buy this thing called moksha. You can't. Moksha is you alone. And it is just a discovery. It is a pramana. It is a teaching. It is an unfoldment of the gurus that present to you yourself to yourself. And that is why in the Gita also it says, through oneself, one lives oneself. And that can be understood both at the level of Vyavahara and at the level of Paramatika. Both levels. Because in Vyavahara, it is, okay, God helps those who helps themselves, that kind of thinking. And in Paramatika, yourself, the recognition of oneself alone is the result of this knowledge. And that alone is mukti. Therefore, I myself have helped myself because the very truth of the teaching is I alone. And therefore, the I that I am not is enlightened to recognize oneself as the I that one is. That is how the transformation takes place. Okay. Any questions here? Okay. So, yeah, Himaji, namaste. I didn't get to connect with you earlier, but I'm glad you've joined the satsang as well. Welcome. Um, okay, I see somebody has joined. Um, Pe- Perandantham. Namaste. Okay, so what I will do is I think we've done enough reading for today. There's quite a lot of dense material that we covered. I'll open up the floor for general questions, and if there are none, then let's convene next week. Any questions on what we went over, or even more generically? Okay, so we good. Let's meet next week, and for whoever has joined us right now, we start at 7 o'clock. So just something to keep in mind. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। Can stop the recording.